we should live with gratitude, because there are so many things in life that are given to us just like that, for free, with no sense of us earning it. We haven't done anything really to contribute anything, like gravity, like Mother Earth giving us everything, like the sun. So Vedas, in fact, start out, Rig Veda, for example, starts out by praising these devatas, okay, who are in charge. In our system, we have God as Purusha, okay, or Paramatma, the great Almighty God, who doesn't do everything by himself according to Madhvacharya. There is a hierarchical system known as Taratamya, within which Indra, okay, who is a Devata, Indra is given a portfolio of thunder and lightning, just like in Greece. So then you have Varuna, that is the Devata over all principles of water. So if you look at ether, air, fire, water, and earth, those 5 principles known as Pancha Mahabhutas, they all have Devatas that are in charge of that. Okay? The Rig Veda basically begins with praising those Devatas for all that they have granted us for free. They haven't asked us for anything. Gratitude is a feeling of thankfulness, right? I've written down a lot of notes here that came to my mind as I was preparing for this afternoon. It's a feeling of thankfulness for something that someone did for you, right? That's what it is, at the most basic level. And you also have a sense of respect and even reverence sometimes, depending on the magnitude and the type of work that somebody else did for you. Okay? So that respect is there, that reverence is there in some cases. But you also have this feeling of indebtedness, right? They did something for you, you're grateful, you want to return the favor in some small way if you can, right? But ultimately, I think deep down, whether you know the terminology or not, but deep down, ultimately what this comes down to is you know that there is dharma involved in it. That is to say, love, compassion, some amount of sacrifice. So deep down we know that they have done the right thing, and for us to feel grateful, it has all these things embedded: indebtedness, dharma, respect, reverence, and a sense of thankfulness. So this is all kind of bundled into that one word, gratitude. Okay, we should live with gratitude because it makes us actually count our blessings for everything that we have, seen and unseen. Even the seen ones are thousands in numbers, right? We wouldn't live here without God's gifts. We wouldn't even be born, in fact, right? If we didn't have all the right conditions coming together for us to be born. The soul took this life to be here, and that's because of a number of circumstances that we didn't contribute to. We didn't do anything other than doing some karma, right? The earth is here. It's basically, in my lifetime, it's pretty much infallible. Gravity is here. Sun is here. So Rig Veda basically says a lot of prayers, a lot of hymns to Surya. Surya is the sun. Okay? We call it sun worship here, but it was there already, in Rig Veda. Rig Veda is the first of many Vedas, as you know, first of 4. So Surya is there, and then Surya Namaskara in yogic practices, or sun salutation we call it, right? That's there in reverence to sun. So before I get too deep into all this, let me just say this, that whenever we have gratitude towards human beings or anything else, right, we normally feel that sense of thankfulness. But whenever we have it with such levels of magnitude, such as gravity, such as earth that gives us food, such as rain, such as the sunlight and so on, the magnitude is so big that it's not just a sense of thankfulness, right? It's a sense of reverence. where you want to do something but you cannot. How are you going to repay the sun? How are you going to repay the earth? Right? How are you going to repay whether rain is falling or not? So the magnitude is so big and so essential to us that we have a sense of reverence, and all we can do is praise the devatas that are in charge of them. So that's what Rigveda does. Okay, there are a lot of hymns to Surya, a lot of hymns to Agni, fire. Okay, there are a lot of hymns to Varuna, the element of water, devata over water, and then a lot of hymns to Vayu, and so on and so forth. There's a big list of things that Rigveda starts out with. They don't start out by saying hymns to God directly. That comes later. Okay? So Rudra, Vishnu, and no, Brahma is there, of course, but all these elemental things that are essential to us being here and doing well. Okay? So that's how it's expressed in the Rig Veda, for example. So that then filters out into every aspect of our life if we should follow that. Okay, that's the mentality. I'm just explaining to you the psychology and the mindset behind these Rig Veda hymns that are in the karma kanda, ritualistic things that we can do. Okay, so I'll get to that in a few minutes. So if you take gratitude, I've said what it is, right? I'll tell you why it's important to feel gratitude. Again, this is all common sense to all of us, but the Vedas especially have a means for expressing that gratitude, which we'll get to in a few minutes. So who is this gratitude towards that we're doing, right? So at a very basic level, I've written down, right? At a very basic level, somebody praises us. Oh, how nice you look today, or I like your whatever, shoes, or whatever. At that point, or somebody teaches us something, or somebody feeds us, right? Gives us good food, or somebody gives us guidance. And you can go on and on with that list on things that people do for each other, right? So we feel a sense of gratitude and therefore indebtedness, and we feel a sense of dharma and when that happens. But that's at a basic level. Okay, what about at the level of what I just mentioned, right? The earth being there, not silently, right? It's not asking us for anything. The sun being there, not asking us for anything. It's equal to everybody. Vayu, Varuna, all these are there without discrimination, without caring how rich or poor we are, how educated or how uneducated we are. It doesn't matter. Okay, whether you're an animal, whether you're a human being, it doesn't matter. Okay, all the gifts that are there for life to happen, it's all there silently and simply providing it to us without any expectation of anything back from us. Okay, so a little bit higher level than just saying thank you to one another is having that feeling and realization that there are so many things around us that we should feel thankful for. That's a gift of God. And then even at a higher level, instead of saying what are we feeling thankful for, okay, instead of thinking that way, you now ask, who is providing all this? Who is giving us all these gifts? And at that point, the sages, right, sometimes go into a trance because they can't imagine, right? They're overwhelmed about so many things that have to work for this to work. Okay? So when they realize that, and they're God-realized people, they're overwhelmed with all the things that come together by the grace of God. So gratitude here, I've shown you, it can be at 3 different levels, right? The basic level, where we meet each other, we exchange pleasantries, that's one thing. But at another level, you realize so many things are coming together for all this to work. And then you ask the question, who is making it work? Who is providing us with all these gifts? It's God, with no expectation of us on anything other than offering our recognition and our prayers or praises. Some kind of recognition is a good thing, mostly for us. It's not really for God at all. Okay? So when you have ether, air, fire, water, earth, you have Surya, that is the sun, rain, gravity, all these things are governed by devatas in the Rig Veda. Okay? And when you ask the question of who is providing that, it's not devatas anymore. It's the God of gods, the Almighty Lord, known as Deva or Paramatma or Purusha. Okay, according to these Vedas. So, I alluded to this. What are the levels? There are a lot of levels in gratitude too. But let me just go through the fact that it's a spectrum. At the lowest level, somebody says something nice to you. Oh, your hair looks nice today. Oh, thank you. It stops there. There's no real gratitude. It's just both of them are saying something. I'm not saying that it's false, but it's very lightweight, right? But all the way on this side of the spectrum is the overwhelming sense of gratitude on the magnanimity, if you will, of what God provides us. At that point, at this point, okay, on this side of the spectrum, you not only have a sense of thank you, but you have a sense of how big it is and what can you do to try and express your feelings of gratitude. Okay? And the Rig Veda is a specialist at expressing those. Okay? That's the ritualistic part where pujas are done, where yajnas are done, where yagas are done, where mantras are done, where shlokas are done, and so on. I'll get to that in a few minutes. Right? So when you are given so many things that are really not deserved because we didn't do anything to deserve many of these things, when the sages realize the scale and the magnitude and the love that goes behind that, it's incredible. So, before we get too far, I've written down what's the opposite of gratitude. How should we live? Remember, this is all transactional in nature. Okay, I'm not saying if you are the kind of self-realized soul where you and God are one, or your soul has been completely merged with God, or you know that everything is one. Okay, you see that. That's a different thing. Put that aside. There's no question of gratitude in that because there are no two. Who are you having a gratitude towards? Yourself? Right? No. That's a different thing. Okay? But I'm talking about at the transaction level for most of us family people, how to live. Right? How to live is with gratitude. That's what we're talking about today. So what's the opposite of gratitude? That is entitlement. Right? I'm here, so I deserve. They haven't done anything. I'm here, so I deserve it. Okay, somebody owes me something. For what? For something you did, something nice, something constructive? No, I'm here, that's why I need it. So I'm privileged, I'm entitled. And what happens with that kind of mentality? These people are never contented or satisfied because it is a form of want and desire. Want and desire, again, Bhagavatam and Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says that whenever you have wants and desires, if you fulfill them, you want more of it. If you don't fulfill them, your peace is disturbed because now you're angry and frustrated. So either way, these people who have a sense of entitlement, who don't have a sense of gratitude, okay, get themselves into a big hole, big trouble, because they will never be happy. They create a living hell for themselves right here. Okay, they expect so many things of everybody else without them doing anything really much to contribute. So we can't have that. Okay, that's a guaranteed way where you create hell for yourself, not heaven. Gratitude is much better because if you do have that, you have contentment that God has given us so much. I look at my health and I go, oh, I have to take cholesterol medicine. And that's very depressing. But is it though? The fact that there is a cholesterol medicine that makes me live a little longer and not have heart attacks, isn't that a blessing in some ways? It depends on how you look at it, right? So what I'm asking is that, and based on Rigveda and all that, always look at what you have been given. There are so many blessings. I'm not saying that only Mother Nature has all the gifts. People have gifts. Isn't the medicine maker in my cholesterol drug an unknown fellow, to me anyway, making a big difference in people's longevity? Things like that. There are so many things, right? But if we start looking at the negative, there's a big list of things. So I'll tell you a story about this right now. I intended for it later, but I have a story. I think it was sage Narada who came to, you know that Bhagavad Gita started with Pandavas, the good side, where Krishna sided with them, only 5 of them, right? And Kauravas, 100 of them, led by Duryodhana. Duryodhana on this side, and Pandavas led by their oldest brother known as Dharmaraja or Dhritarashtra. I'm sorry, Yudhishthira. So Yudhishthira here known as Dharmaraja, and Kaurava here of Duryodhana. This guy is the bad guy, this guy is the good guy, okay? He always follows Dharma, no matter what. No matter what the circumstance, he tries to follow Dharma, okay? Sometimes he fails, but he always tries to keep his focus on Dharma. This guy knows Dharma, but he chooses not to follow it. He tells as much to Krishna. So Narada comes to them and he says to this guy, Kaurava or Duryodhana, he says, I want you to go around all of your empire in India and find me a good person, okay? Go out and find me a really good person, or as many people as you like. Just bring me back that information. You have a month. And Duryodhana says, I don't need a month, and I don't need to travel to all of India. Right here, all around me right now, there are plenty of people that are bad. As a matter of fact, I cannot find anybody that's even half good. They're not good at all. People are just rotten by nature, says Duryodhana, okay? On this side, Dharmaraja, he is asked the same question. Go to India, take a month, go around the empire and find me a bad guy. So he does. He goes around all of India and comes back very tired and reports back saying that, I'm sorry, I cannot find anybody who is truly bad. Yes, people do some things that are bad. Sometimes they make bad decisions. But at heart, I cannot find a truly bad person. Everybody is good. Isn't that beautiful? So what that tells you, that lesson here is that if we have that filter on where we are always looking for the negative, there are plenty of negatives to see. That's not how to live. Okay? How to live is like Dharmaraja, where you try to understand, like Saint Francis said, right? Try to understand. Try to understand the circumstances of people, circumstances generally, and look at the positive. Okay? And that includes in your own life where you have gratitude for all the things that we have. Don't ever look at things that we don't have. I'll tell you a story about Rama, Sri Rama, a little later. So then, why should we practice this gratitude? Again, at a base level, it means that we are thankful, we are full of love, respect, reverence even, right? But we are content and satisfied. What are we not when we have gratitude? We are not angry, right? We are not angry, we are not jealous. None of the 6 enemies that we have inside us really affect us, such as Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsara. At the time of gratitude, we are just pure at heart, okay? And we are happy. That's why, okay, at a base level. Again, at a higher level, it becomes a matter of understanding the deep love that the devatas and devas have for us. Okay? So that turns then into reverence. That gives us an understanding of the type of sacrifice, okay, and selflessness that's involved here. And so we should learn from that and we should worship it. So says our Vedas, Rig Veda especially. So the worship methods then are taught with that mentality in mind. Does that make sense? Right. So people very, very much mistake what Rig Veda and other Vedas are teaching us as, dumb rituals or idol worship and all this nonsense. And it is complete nonsense. You have to understand the mentality of gratitude before you say, oh, these guys worship fire. No, it is not a question of worshipping fire. It's a question of having reverence for the fact that fire allows us to live, that water allows us to live, okay, that the sunlight allows us to live. The earth provides us food to then live. So what do you do in response? You just sit back and enjoy? Or do you want to say thank you in some way? Right? So all these pujas and shlokas and things like that that come in really is born out of that kind of mentality. I hope that makes sense. So again, we are born, right? Remember the law of karma and rebirth. Karma and rebirth is all about, we did all this karma, when we die, the soul and all its nearby facilities, they all go. But Krishna says, Lord Krishna says, whoever dies will be born again, and whoever is born again shall die, as long as the karma is there. So, the fact that our soul was allowed to be born and take this human birth, not some other birth like an insect or something like that, or a lizard. We have this human birth. That's a great gift. In fact, they say it's one of the greatest gifts that we can have. Why? It's because, believe it or not, if you remember many live streams ago in satsangs, we talked about yogic space and time, right? So we have all these Surya Mandala, Chandra Mandala, and so on. So all these realms up in the heavens and down below. So here we have 7 lokas and realms. Within that, even at the highest level of Satyaloka, where Brahma is, things are static. You cannot grow anymore. If you are there, if your soul is there, at any one of these, except for the Bhuloka, this first one, where we are, Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha, and all that, all the lokas above that, it is static. You are where you are, and nothing changes. Okay, it's a state of being where you cannot really slide backwards or forwards. It is what it is. So, it is human birth where we have the opportunity to slide back or make progress. Okay? Which is why many saints do not ask God to send them to heaven, send them to Swarga, we call it, right? To heaven of any kind. They want births where they're constantly servants of God. Right? So that's what it is. So human birth is very precious. So they don't want moksha, they don't want anything. So the idea is, let me come back to earth so that I have the opportunity to continue to make progress towards freedom. Okay? Whichever path you choose, bhakti or dana, the human life gives us the opportunity to try and realize that. As a matter of fact, many saints and many sages and many gurus will tell you, don't waste this precious life. Right? Do not waste this life. Sant Tulsidas estimates that 8.4 lakhs or 800,000 lives, 800.4 or whatever that is, right? Those species we have come through to achieve this pinnacle called human birth. Okay? So they say, don't waste it. Concentrate on your spiritual self. Concentrate on dharmic practices. Concentrate on freedom. Okay? That's what they always preach and teach us. But we generally ignore it because we are mostly distracted with this, that, this constantly. So that's what they teach us. So if we are thinking about it, we'll make progress. If we are ignoring it, then we will not. Okay? So this gratitude, part of the gratitude, the biggest one I would say, is that our soul has been allowed to take a human birth where we have the opportunity to make progress. Okay? Without which we wouldn't have that opportunity. So a big thanks to God and His system of karma. Okay? Does that make any sense? If you have questions, certainly put it in your comments. We'll take a look. It also gives us, while we take birth and we are in a body, right, in a human form, it allows us to take advantage of it and follow the teachings of Dharmashastra, okay, where we have this thing known as Purushartha, okay. I know I'm throwing a lot of Sanskrit at you, but it is what it is, okay, where we have Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. These four things, they say, okay, according to the Vedic culture, are the goals of life, of this life, okay, of any human being. It doesn't apply to dogs or cats or deer or any other animal. It's only human beings. Purushartha, remember this. Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Okay. Dharma you already know. So we have to do the right things for our walk of life to create good karma, okay, to do selfless service and whatnot. Okay, I'm not going to go into what dharma is here. We can do a separate session for that if you like. Artha simply means that an ability for us to go and pursue wealth and prosperity. Okay, Artha means that. And Kama means to follow our passions and to explore and experience pleasures. When I say that, everybody's mind goes to sex. That's not the only thing, okay? There are pleasures of the intellect. Or if you have very fine cuisine that you really love and you enjoy it, that's a sense pleasure, okay? And or if you look at beautiful art or beautiful things, that's the pleasure to the eyes or to the touch and so on. Or you hear beautiful music, it's a pleasure to the ears. So all that falls under this word called kama, okay? And then finally, moksha. Moksha means freedom, liberty. So these are the four goals of any human life. Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. So where do we get this from? Okay? Where are these from? Where is more detail about what that is? I'll just mention these off to you real quick. Dharma has a lot of different definitions and authors that describe what it is. Okay, I've written down a couple of these. Gautama, Apastamba, Vasishta, or Vasishta, I should say. They've written extensively about this. There's an entire body of work called Dharmashastra, Dharma Sutras, and whatnot, as to what it is we mean by Dharma. Okay, so that's there. The second one, Artha, there is something called Arthashastra. Shastra means simply science. Okay, Arthashastra means science of wealth or prosperity. And then the third one, Kama, as you know, the most famous one is Kamasutra, right? We mistake Kamasutra to simply mean sex positions. That's not what it is. That's a small part of Kamasutra as written by Vatsyayana, a sage known as Vatsyayana. That's a very small, narrow part. The much bigger part is about how to explore all different kinds of sense pleasures. As I mentioned, if you look at something beautiful or you hear beautiful music, all that is described in very great detail in Kama Sutra. Okay, and then finally, moksha. The two primary scriptures on that is Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita, which we've been exploring all throughout in the last year and a half or so. So where they teach us about attachments, desires, being free from it, right? Attachments, desires, fears, and indeed the body, mind, consciousness itself, or how we identify with this versus that. So all that is explored in that. So all four are important, okay? And they can actually be, these two in the middle can be somewhat mapped to our phases of life, right? If you are very young, you obviously cannot do liberation or dharma. At some point, dharma kicks in and it becomes the underlying guidepost or compass by which you have to follow acquisition of wealth or prosperity, or what pleasures you seek should still be founded in dharma. Ultimately, dharma and all our other activities should lead to moksha, that is freedom. Okay? So in other words, ultimately, all this drops off, right? Acquisition of wealth and all the pleasures, sense pleasures, intellectual pleasures, they all drop off in favor of complete freedom from it all. So we should be thankful that the human body has been granted to us so that we can pursue both spiritual progress and do this purushartha that I just spoke of. And then I already talked about this. We should be thankful for this nature that's giving us so many things selflessly, right? Now, if you listen to the scientists, they always tell you, well, it's all here, and life at some point started, and we evolve from amoeba all the way to human beings. All that may be true, but where are they addressing the fact that the sun is there, water is there, it's all given. So Rigveda basically says there are devatas who are in charge of that. Okay? Let me just make another point here. Whenever we do prayers, right? Any kind of prayer, be it puja or just a simple prayer that we say to God, it has two dimensions, typically. Okay? Not at the same time, but it has two dimensions, two reasons. One reason is you are thankful and saying thank you to God for all that God has given to us. The second reason is you are lacking something that you want God to intervene and provide. Those are the two reasons. And you can switch between those two, and according to our prayers, things are provided. Okay? Sometimes not immediately, because there are lessons for us to learn. So until we learn that, we should not, as soon as I ask for a color TV, if I get a color TV just like that for free, I'm going to go on asking for more and more things for free. So you have to learn important lessons there. You just cannot go on asking and expecting immediate results for everything. All right? So I've written down here that we also have something to thank God for. That is, we have 8 dikpalakas. That is, dik means directions, 8 directions. So out of that, whenever we do Satyanarayana Puja, we always say a prayer to our guardian angels from every direction. Om Indraya Namaha, Om Agnaya Namaha, Om Yamaya Namaha, Om Nirate Namaha, Om Varunaya Namaha, Om Vayuve Namaha, Om Kuberaya Namaha, Om Ishanaya Namaha. Right? Those things we say just to thank our guardian protective angels that are there in each direction. So we should be thankful for that. This is not seen, it's unseen protection. And then we have to thank our Guru and the entire Guru lineage, right? Guru, Guru's Guru, and his Guru. They all protect us both here and hereafter. And then let's not forget, as soon as we're born, right, our parents and then eventually teachers, they are the ones who protect us and teach us and with the spirit of sacrifice, and with the spirit of wishing us well in life. Okay? Which is why there's an Upanishad called Taittiriya Upanishad, which teaches us right from the beginning in the Vedic culture. That's what we have to talk about, right? Right from the very beginning, it used to be, I don't know whether they still do it, but when I was growing up, certainly it was well known. That is, Matra Devo Bhava. That means mother is God. Your first God is mother to the child. Pitru Devo Bhava. Father is God. Acharya Devo Bhava. Teacher is God, or Guru is God, right? Atiti Devo Bhava. Guest is God. I don't want to get into all of these, but you start out by saying, my parents are God because they had protected me, they brought me up, and they taught me. And then the teacher is God because they made my progress possible, and so on. But remember, the mentality here is, it's not that they're actually God, okay? The mentality here is the one of love, gratitude, and reverence. That's the attitude. This is the Vedic culture, okay? Eventually, the guru, spiritual guru, teaches you to go beyond your physical mother, physical father, physical guru, and physical anything, to see that God, it's flipped now, that God is your mother, and only God is your mother, only God is your father. In other words, God is the actual creator, not your physical mother or father. Okay? And God is your everything. God is your relative, is actually all of your relatives, and God is everything. So that's taught in Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva, that we always sing. So we have parents to thank for and teachers to thank for, right? So we need to be grateful to them. And then the sages basically tell you that it takes a certain level of understanding and realization about how many things we've been given for free. I mentioned that already. But it's out of unconditional love, right? So what we should do is we should have reverence, we should have humility, and appreciate all those things daily if possible, right? Get up in the morning, and the first thing you do is, you thank God for actually waking up, right? And having the energy to get out of bed and do things. All the things that are given to us for free. We should have that humility. We should have that reverence. But ultimately, we should do what we can to give back as much as we can. Otherwise, just feeling of thankfulness is excellent, but you'll find that it's insufficient. You want to give back in some way. Okay? So, I'm going to tell you how Lord Rama, Sri Rama, one of the incarnations of Vishnu, his entire life was about dharma and setting the standard, a very high standard for all the rest of us to follow. So there's a story, it's not a real story, but it is said that Sri Rama, when he was king, used to heap praise, on anybody who did something very small, all pretty much insignificant, right? Somebody helped him with something, or somebody said something nice. He used to heap them with praises. And not just praises, but he used to have their back. Okay, in other words, he was loyal to make sure that they're protected. Okay, that's what dharma is. That's what the Vedic teachings basically is. He embodies that. But on the other hand, if anybody wronged him or said something nasty, he would be very quick to forget about that and forgive them and move on. There are 3 exceptions to this. That is Ravana, Kumbhakarna, and Vali, that he ended up destroying because they were so disruptive and evil to humanity that he took avatar for that purpose. Okay? So other than that, Rama was an embodiment of dharma, and he used to practice this tremendous gratitude towards anybody who lifted a finger to do anything for him. In fact, it was so out of balance, people were surprised. But that's something that we have to learn from. But he went out of his way to do more for them. There's an old phrase I remember one of my employers used to tell me, that is, give more than you take, and you'll be successful. And I keep that in mind always. I try to give more than I take. Okay, so that's something you can think about. So gratitude has all these concepts kind of built into it. Okay, ultimately, living a thankful life is a key component of Dharma itself, practicing Dharma. How? Because we learn from nature, okay, from God, from nature, about how to give without expecting anything in return. Okay, no reward, nobody to pat you on the back, any of that. You don't do it for that purpose. You do it selflessly, just like God does. You do it without any noise, just like nature does. So those are the key concepts here in terms of gratitude. A couple of other things I would say is Rig Veda and other Vedas, basically the 4 Vedas. The first part of that, first half of it, is all about expressing this gratitude that people call as ritual. It's expression of gratitude through pujas, okay, and shlokas. What are shlokas? Shlokas are in praise of God. So we say something like Namo Namo Ganeshaya Vigneshaya Namo Namaha Vinayakaya Vaitubhyam Vikritaya Namo Namaha. So salutations unto Ganesha. Namo Namo Ganeshaya Vigneshaya Namo Namaha. Notice that Ganesha is also called Vignesha, right? Vinayaka, Vikrita. So like this, there are so many names. So these names are adjectives of the greatness and aspects of Ganesha. So we are remembering that and saying salutations unto thee. So when we have Namo Namo Ganeshaya, or we say something like let's say we have in Satyanarayana Puja, Dhyayet Satyam Gunatitam Gunatraya Samanvitam. This is a remembering the greatness of that aspect of God known as Satyanarayana. Or we have Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha. So Guru is Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva. Guru Sakshat Para Brahma to me. Guru is actually equivalent to God. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So these things are known as shloka, where there are praises heaped, okay, with the spirit of gratitude, with the spirit of reverence, because we really cannot pay the gurus or gods or devatas back in any way. We're too small for that. All we can do is heap praise, and those are shlokas in the Rig Veda, etc. Okay. So, what are the other ways? We do pujas. Pujas are full of shlokas, by the way, but there are also steps and activities that we do within the puja. We do yajna, or the fire sacrifice, and we sing the glories of God, okay, with bhajans, which Amma just did, right? With shlokas, as I just mentioned, and with some mantras. If you don't know, I'm going to tell it to you right now, okay? I was telling my wife this point. You may be wondering what is the difference between a mantra, a shloka, a sutra, and whatnot, okay? A sukta and all that. Without getting too deep into it, I'll tell you. Mantra is sort of a catch-all phrase at one level, but it's actually more technical than that. Mantra means, technical definition, mananat trayate iti mantraha. That is some phrase that enables you to transcend the mind. Okay? So, you will notice that when I said shloka, I didn't include Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I did not include Om Namo Narayanaya. I did not include Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Right? That's because they are not praising anything. This mantra here is something that the Guru has seen, okay, that enabled them to go to a higher realm and higher realization. Some of them have seen God, some of them have seen the powers of God, if you will, and had some realization with that mantra. So when they give you the mantra, okay, it is not a shloka. It's not in praise of anything. It's a mantra that has a code and a vibration that takes your mind to a different realm with repetition. Okay? So excuse me. So singing the glories of God is taught in Samaveda. So like this, how do we express gratitude towards something we really cannot do justice to? We do our puja. We do our mantras. We do our shlokas. What can we do other than to praise God and say a heartfelt thank you? Right? If you're doing it out of obligation, don't bother. If you really have a heartfelt gratitude, then only do puja, then only do bhajans, then only do shlokas, etc. Otherwise, don't bother, because who is listening? If it is not heartfelt, it's useless. Which is why Sri Krishna says, I don't really care what my devotees offer me physically, right? People think that, back in old India, there were kings, as you know, and they had this, 12 priests or more doing a very grand scale puja or yajna with so many gifts, rich gifts given to brahmanas, cattle given to here and there, poor feeding this and all these things to show their gratitude. But you sometimes wonder whether they're showing gratitude or are they showing off. Like many of the weddings, right? Wedding happens whether you have a grand wedding or just exchange of rings and vows. So in that way, Krishna is not bothered, he says, with what you are offering him other than your pure love. So he says, it can be as simple as patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati. What does that mean? That means that you can just, again, heartfelt, if you offer a leaf, right, or a flower, right, or a piece of fruit, or just water, with bhakti, with devotion, I will accept it. That's all we can do ultimately. How are we going to repay the sun, much less God? How are we going to repay the earth, much less God? All we can do is have that heartfelt gratitude and reverence and offer that back to God. That's about it. Okay? So this entire thinking, if you look at it, our entire first part of the Vedas, so-called ritualistic or karma kanda, is all about showing that reverence and gratitude. Now, it is also true that if you are lacking something, you still do a puja, because those are the two dimensions of prayer, as I mentioned.